I think anyone who plays golf makes you resilient in a lot of ways. The game beats most of us up most times we play. You have to love the game so much and truly believe that you can achieve to keep coming back and to pick yourself up. I speak to a few younger players at the moment, sort of bit of mentoring and whatever, and I always say to them, if you, as long as you really honestly believe in your heart that you can make it and you're good enough, then you find a way to keep going.
Scott, welcome to the Golf Yourself Healthy podcast. Do you know why I just did a big clap in the microphone?
No, I don't.
Okay, so you were just asking me a second ago how we do all the sync between the audio and the video. That is why on movie sets they go and action, because that clap noise creates a sound wave that allows you to track in the editing where you can marry up the audio and the video.
Okay.
Every day's a school day, right?
I was going to say, yeah, always learning, yeah.
Absolutely. I tell that to all my guests, and this might be the one time I actually include that as a little bit of trivia, so we never include that in the final edit. Thank you to Nick at Staden Heights for having us here. You play a bit of golf here yourself?
Yeah, I live just down the road, so it's very convenient. Club have been great over the last 20 years or more that I've been living down in Plymouth, and they allow me to come and play and practice whenever I want, so it's very handy. Nice little facilities. Greens are great in the summer.
So I'm going to give a very short plug to for any of our viewers watching this on YouTube. We have a feature film series that we started recently called 9 is Fine, which I know Scott has liked. I think in particular it was a reel of me losing a ball, sort of walking around looking for it in the woods. In that same video, I topped it off the tee on the first. I can play golf, actually. I can assure you of that, I promise. But when was the last time you topped a ball off a tee, actually? I was hoping you were going to say fairly recent, but no.
No, it's actually so long ago I can't remember yet.
Well, do you know, this is me mentioning 9 is Fine now, because I just want to give a plug to people who you know, that are listening to this podcast. Go and check it out. But we've done a few episodes, and it's kind of like spotlighting the kind of, you know, the benefits of playing a shorter form of golf. Especially, I've found it beneficial since I've been a busy dad. But I had this thought. I was like, do you know what would be a bit fun and a bit different? I'm going to use that 9 is Fine theme, and I'm going to use it to do a few very short 9 icebreaker questions for Scott. Okay. So on the European Tour website, every player has a profile, right? And your 3 interests or hobbies that were listed on there were cars, bodyboarding, and music.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, I've got to be honest with you, I barely know what bodyboarding is, so I couldn't come up with 3 questions that were golf-linked and linked to bodyboarding. But I've got 9 questions for it. I'm going to start with, on the cars theme, what's the first car you ever owned?
It was a Peugeot 306.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was quite a nice car, actually. I was fortunate. My parents helped me out with a half-decent car there to get started with, obviously travelling the length and breadth of the country to play tournaments, so had a nice, reliable car. Yeah.
Second question. Imagine you could win a hole-in-one car. You get to choose any car. What car are you getting if you slam dunk a hole-in-one?
It would... Oh, there's so many to choose from, but the car I've always really wanted and I've never owned is a Porsche 911 Turbo S. So
they must have given them away as prizes in hole-in-ones.
No, it's generally
BMW.
Generally BMWs. They're the big sponsor of the tour, and I had one hole-in-one when I was on tour, but I didn't win anything for it, unfortunately. But I've had mates that have won M5s, M6s, so they've done great. But yeah, I think for me, it would be that Porsche.
And if you had to pick a par 3 hole that's like an iconic favourite par 3 hole that you've played that you could hole in one and win a car off, what par 3 hole would it be?
That's a really good question as well. So, well, there's a very special one at King's Barnes, actually. And that would be is it the 16th? 15th or 16th, right on the edge of the water. The water cuts in. Decent length as well, it can play 6-5 iron, something like that. That's a pretty special par 3, so that would be nice.
We're going to go on to music-themed questions next. What's your walkout song? Assuming you're playing, you've seen that, is it Zurich Classic or which is a tournament over in the US, they do a walkout song, first tee.
I'm not sure I'm a music man, but I do like music. I like eclectic mix of music. How about DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, Summertime?
That's a great choice. That's very good.
Uplifting song, that one.
Music being played on the golf course, a la live, let's say, yes or no?
During competition, I would say no, for me. Originally, I hated it, but I've actually grown to be okay with that now during practice rounds. One of the guys out there, Scott Hend, the Australian guy who's leading our Order of Merit, he's always got his Bluetooth speaker with him, and he cranks the music up when we're out playing practice rounds, and I'm okay with that now.
Oh, really? So he's kind of acclimatized you to it a little bit. He's kind of desensitized you to it.
Yeah, he's helped me. I was getting that way, and you kind of just, well, again, like I say, playing some pro-ams and the amateurs, really want to have the music, and you kind of got to put up with it on those days. So I think I've got used to it a little bit, that way in the start. But during competition, I'm not a fan of it belting out around the golf course, if I'm honest.
And what about music in your ears while on the driving range? Yes or no?
Yeah, I have done it on occasion, I must admit, but it's not my first thought that I need to have my headphones and be playing music. So I'd say the large percentage of the time I'm not doing it. I'm not adverse to it, but generally a lot of the time, I don't even think about that. It's not a consideration for me.
Do you see it on tour? Do guys do it?
Yeah, there are some guys who do it. Perhaps, maybe not so much in their warm-up before their, the half hour or the hour before they go out to play the competition, but maybe on practice days or maybe after the round if they're doing a bit of work. But I think we're a bit old school, and we like to have a bit of chat and a bit of banter, I think.
Yeah.
Which you can't do if someone's got their headphones in.
Have you played many 9-hole courses before?
Played a couple, yeah. I played one not long ago in Istanbul, actually.
I was going to ask then, what's the best one you've ever played? Was it that one?
That's probably the best 9-hole, yeah.
What was it called?
It's the Mustafa Koç Golf Club, which is it's actually 9. Well, it's 9 holes. No, sorry, it's 10 holes, and then they've got an extra tee for one of the other holes, so it's kind of 11 different holes. But essentially, it's a 9-hole course, and relatively new, but yeah, quite challenging, and yeah, good condition.
Okay, cool. Check it out. A 54 handicapper could walk off of a par 5 with a 9 and still get one Stableford point and think 9 is fine. Has there ever been a time, Scott, where you've walked off of a par 5 with a 9 and thought that was fine?
The answer is no, and it's really funny you should mention that, because I literally made a 9 last week in La Manga. On the 9th, it was my finishing hole on the first round. I was 4 under through my front 9, which was the back 9, and it all went a little bit awry on my back 9, the front 9, culminating with my initial tee shot on the 9th being stuck up a palm tree, and a lost ball, and I ended up making a 9. So 9's never fine for me.
No. I just think if you had asked Sergio Garcia this question at 2018 Masters when he made a 13 or whatever it was in that par 5,
he'd have snapped your hand off for a 9.
He would have snapped your hand off for a 9, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Exactly. Because I thought, yeah, maybe I'll ask him that one. And then lastly, imagine you play 9 holes, and I could offer you one of 2 possible scorecards at the end of it. One has 9 pars on it, and the other one has 3 pars, 3 birdies, and 3 bogeys. Which one are you picking and why?
Ooh. I guess, it depends on the golf course, I suppose. If it's a brutally tough course or conditions, then 9 pars is very good. But overall, probably you want to be making some birdies. Shows that you're hitting some good shots in there, whereas 9 pars could be, pretty average play. But then again, the 3 bogeys is frustrating. So that's a tough call, actually.
I'm glad you say that, right? Because this question came to me last night, and I thought that's a really curious thing, right? Because again, like, I can't compare my standard of golf to yours, but I like the angle you took with that, because mine would be similar, right? Because I would take the view, I'm a 20.7 handicapper WHS, right? So if I've got 9 pars, I'm doing something pretty well. But where I'm going with this as well is, I, in a way, sort of instinctively feel like 3 bogeys and 3 birdies tells me some part of my game's working well, and it's easier to identify with the development areas with the bogeys, if you know what I mean. Whereas almost you could be lulled into thinking 9 pars, that's middle of the bed, that's kind of, that's steady Eddie golf. But 2004, it's a pretty big year for you, fair to say. A breakout win. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, I mean the PGA at Wentworth was played the last week in May. Historically, that's when it was always played, and so I'd got my card through the Challenge Tour, finishing 7th on the Order of Merit, I think it was, and started that year pretty much straight away. Early New Year in South Africa. Was playing okay. I'd had a one top 15 finish, and then I got on a bit of a run where I wasn't playing particularly poorly, but I was scoring poorly, and I missed a whole raft of cuts. And coming into that event, which was the biggest event that I was due to play all year, biggest prestigious event, most prestigious event, and the biggest prize money, it was a real. It was a week. Obviously, everybody wants to play well that week. It's just a fabulous week. And even 21 years ago, it was a massive event. It's gone on to a huge scale now. If you go and watch, it's incredible the scale of it. But it was big back then, and it was big prize money as well. In 2004, so I really just wanted to settle things down. I'd come off a run of missed cuts, like I say, not feeling like I was playing particularly badly, but every slightly missed shot was costing me dearly. I was making a double bogey or a triple bogey, and it was just knocking me out for the weekend. So really wanted to steady the ship and get four solid rounds under my belt there, especially playing at home. And 2004 was a big year because Kira, our first daughter, was born, and she was only 4 weeks old when Wentworth came around, and Claire was there, my wife, with Kira, and my parents and her parents. So it was a real family week, and a lot of friends came down to watch as well. It's such a popular tournament, and things just clicked that week. Like I say, I'd felt like I'd been playing quite well in the main, just not scoring, and I just needed to eliminate a few of those mistakes and get things a bit more steady. Shall we say. So it was just a phenomenal week in the end. I mean, I played nicely, I putted really well. If I got myself in trouble, my plan was to be too gung-ho and too aggressive. I was getting the ball back in play, giving myself a chance to up and down it for a par, let's say. And that's what I kind of did all week, and then before I knew it, it was Sunday afternoon, and I'm out in the last group with Angel Cabrera. So, he was one shot ahead, and he was obviously the huge favourite that day. Me being a relative unknown to most people, and just behind us, the groups that had gone out ahead, there was a lot of players: Adam Scott, Darren Clark, Hegman, I think, who was playing very well at the time. So, a lot of big names and a lot of expectation on those guys, I guess, to go and try and win the tournament, and not so much on me.
I mean, at that point in time, right, because we now, we operate in times in professional golf, let's say, and in professional sport, where they've got big teams around them, sports psychologists and all sorts, right? Did you have anything like that available to you back at that time?
I had my long-term coach, Keith Williams, who'd coached me since I was 14 and I started on the England training.
Okay.
So he'd been my coach for 15 years or more. And he was down that week, during the week. I think he might have stayed until after the first round. So he was keeping things in check for me. No, actually, he was there nearly the whole week, I think, and he maybe left on the Sunday after I'd warmed up and he went home. I had also been working with a sports psychologist for about a year or more.
At that time?
Yeah, one of the lads on Challenge Tour, Ben Barham, he started working with a guy called Jeff Pettit, who's no longer with us, unfortunately, but Jeff came out and was working with Ben, and he asked if I wanted to work with him, and we had a few chats, and then I started working with him. So I'd done some pretty good work with Jeff over that 12 months leading into the PGA, and I felt I was in a good place. I mean, I've always felt that my mental strength and resilience has been, pretty good, and I had no reason to really doubt myself that it would all, unfold in a negative way on the last day, just purely because I was in, uncharted territory. I was pretty confident in my ability to keep things, at least thinking the right way. It doesn't guarantee things are going to go your way, but at least I could conduct myself and stay kind of in the present. So that was it really for my team, apart from obviously having family and friends who, have always been supportive of my career.
I'm just curious because, when you mention the likes of, had Cabrera won the Masters by that point?
No, he went on to win the Masters and the US Open after that, yeah.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
So, suffice it to say, he's already a big name, he's proven, sort of capability or whatever by that point. So, I'm just applying this. If I were, as a club golfer or whatever, I'm sure I'm not the only one that would watch or listen to this and kind of go, I struggle in competitive golf. I would crumble. I think if I got to that stage on a final day and I know I've got like a previous club champion or someone that's like of a level that I would perceive to, and this is just me, right? So I'm just curious to know, how did any of this enter your mind at all, where you're thinking, I've got all these names hovering around me on the leaderboard, or were you just so in your own zone that you're not even thinking about anyone else?
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't thinking about, the position I was in, but I guess when you're in that position, what you know is that for 3 days you've been in control of your game, and things are going well. You're doing a lot of things right to be in that position, and that's the position we all strive to be in, is to be challenging for tournaments, week in, week out if we can. But at the same time, it was my first year on tour, and it was the biggest event of the year. So to be in the final group in amongst all those names was very exciting, a little bit daunting. And again, I'd gone in there that week just wanting to have a really solid week, and it would have given me, a decent amount of points towards my keeping my card, which was obviously my first goal as a rookie. So, barring a disaster on the last day, I'd have finished, top 10, let's say, and that would have given me, a real lift from where I'd been in the sort of 6 or 8 tournaments previously. It would have been good points towards my card. So in a way, I was just thinking about having a solid day, trying to do what I'd done the last 3 days, and give myself that top 10 position, which would be great. Anything better than that was a real bonus. But I also knew that if things went my way and I played how I had played the last 3 days and I stayed out of my own way, that I could have a chance to win it, which was an amazing thing to be thinking as a rookie, to try and pick up the flagship event.
Yeah, definitely. Because it sounds like, if I'm hearing you right, there was this element of, course management was very much foremost in your mind, thinking just almost don't do what's within my gift here. Don't go gung-ho, I think were the words you used. So, because that's an interesting one as well, isn't it? Because I think, you do on any given weekend these days. Just look at the DP World Tour, or like just the other week, the Japanese guy Nakajima, wasn't it? I think was like top, and then Fleetwood beat him in India. You know, and it's kind of for a relative, I guess, like you kind of like, do I try and lead from the front here and go at it and make birdies before they do, or you almost can't because you're out last, if you know what I mean. But
it generally comes with experience, but obviously at that point for me, I didn't really have the experience of being in that position. But what I'd had the experience of was 6 years.
Blessing in some ways, maybe.
In some ways, yeah. But I had 6 years as a pro, so I'd like to think I was drawing on my 6 years experience as a pro. And during that time, funny enough, I did play probably 3 years before that win at the PGA. I was playing Sunshine Tour down in South Africa in the winter, and Retief Goosen was world number 4 at the time. And I played the Dimension Data at Sun City and was doing quite well. And I ended up playing Saturday and Sunday with him. We were tied going into the third round. Both shot the same score. I got to play with him the next day. I shot 69, I think, and he shot 66, and he beat me by 3. But I kind of also drew on that experience. You know, I'd played with someone who was, you know, very high in the world rankings for 2 days on a pretty tough golf course, and I'd kind of held things together and you know, had a respectable finish. And I think I drew on some of those experiences, but also the realization that you can only do what you do. You can't control what the rest of the field is going to do. So if you can just try and play, it's so cliche, isn't it? One shot at a time, one hole at a time, get the best out of the round that you can do. But that is all you can do. And you know, on another day, I could have shot 64 like I did, and Cabrera could have shot 64. He could have shot 62, and I would have had an unbelievable week, but I would have gone away as the runner-up instead of the winner. So I think when you remind yourself of some of those things, and you recognise that actually all you can do go out there is and do the best you can do on that day, whatever that might be, 64, 74, whatever it is. Just try and do your bit, and you know, they always say you need a little bit of luck and, you know, a little bit of good fortune to come out on top, and I don't disagree with that. You know, and I played great that day, and I stayed out of my own way, and I holed a few great putts coming in on the closing stretch, and that's what made it my week. And I guess that's what I can put it down to. But it is the ability to stay out of your own way and just literally just get on with, you know, the task in hand, which is the next shot.
And that's brilliant. Stay out of your own way. I've never heard anyone frame it that way, but it's very, very true. Maybe one other question on this. Given Kira was 4 weeks old or something at the time, you know, again, like they always say that kind of, I don't know if there's an expression for it, but like pros always get this surge of kind of like, you know, they win around the time that their first baby is born or whatever. She was your first, you said?
She was the first,
yeah. So was there an element of that, just almost in this pink cloud of kind of like...
Yeah, I mean, you know, life changed when she was born at the end of April, a month before the PGA, and it puts things in perspective when you've got a little one. But it also, for me, I get, in a way, it added a little bit of pressure as well, because now I'm trying to really provide for the family, and I was in the middle of a run of events where I wasn't doing great, and I was spending money each week. I wasn't earning it, which is what happens on the tour if you're missing cuts. So there was an element of additional pressure in some ways, but at the same time, it puts golf in perspective when you've got a little one, and your wife going through childbirth, and obviously natural dangers with that, and you just relieve that everyone comes out okay. And
absolutely.
So there's an element where it puts things in perspective, and then you go and play. But you're right, there's a lot of recorded incidents where guys have won not long after they've had their first child. And I think the other thing for me that week was, because the PGA, it's, like I say, the flagship event, very big event, everybody wants to be there. It can be a little bit of a circus, especially around the practice area. So many people, and and it's such a nice environment to be in as a player in that tournament or a tournament like that you can almost change your routine, and you can spend too much time at the club that you wouldn't normally, or perhaps you feel like you should be up there doing more practice than you would normally do. So what I did that week, I kept things very businesslike in terms of my time management, and I went to the club, I did my work, I did my practice, I played my golf, and I left, and then I spent time with my family. So that was a great distraction for me away from the club. I wasn't at the event on my own and, sat in my room constantly thinking about the tournament and the fact that I'm doing well and what's coming up tomorrow. I had that distraction when I left the golf course, which I think was, when I look back now, was probably a good thing, because we were so preoccupied with Kira. We were still learning as parents what we needed to do. And so, that was probably a good distraction for me. Away from the course, it stopped me thinking too much about where I was and what was coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, that's really interesting. There's a guy we had on this podcast called James Watley. I don't know if you know him or come across. He's a PGA pro. He does mostly teaching, coaching now, but he qualified, I think it was, for the PGA Championship at Wentworth in 2013.
Okay.
And that's one and only time he's played it, and he said on this podcast we did with him what tripped him up, because he missed the cut after 2 days. He didn't have his best stuff, but he did the opposite of what you just described. He completely went against his usual routine. He practiced his arse off. He just changed. He was tweaking stuff, and just like, it was almost like he wanted it too badly, sort of thing,
Yeah, I think that's easy to do, especially if you come in to a tour event and you're not a tour player. You turn up, all the manufacturer vans are there. You've got access to all this new equipment that you would probably have to buy. So it's very easy to spend, like I say, it's very easy to spend too much time up there on the range, hanging around, and I can understand why it happens, because even for me as a tour player, having played I'd played 10 events that year before the PGA, there's something about being in that environment when it is such a big, prestigious tournament and you're so well looked after, that it's very easy just to be there from morning till night. And like you say, it's a change from what you would normally do, and you can over practice, and you can you just get out of your routines, and you can start fiddling with new equipment that's there, and there's a lot of temptation there. So I think that's probably a common story with PGA guys who qualify.
Yeah, I dare say, right? But there's something about mindset there as well, isn't there? Because in a way, there's something to me that suggests, like, right, I'm going to do all of this because you never know when I'll be here again, so I'm going to soak it all up. Like you say, this is the circus around Wentworth. I'm just going to, enjoy all the catering or enjoy whatever else and the trappings of it. But in a way, you've almost like talked yourself into a mindset which is like, this is going to be my one and only shot at this. Whereas you paint a picture of, like, granted, obviously your family, you were really centered in family and taking yourself away from that environment, but both for the interest of your family, but also giving yourself the best conditions for success as well. Almost like, sounded like you took the pressure off yourself there in a way.
Yeah, well, I think you want to do that as a sportsman. The last thing you want to do is add more pressure. So yeah, if you can, there are some guys who, they go the other way, week in, week out, and they try and be very, very relaxed, and almost like it really doesn't matter. It doesn't care. You're not really giving it, on the face of it, you're not giving it your best preparation because you're not putting any real emphasis on it. So I think there's people handle it in different ways. They try and deflect the pressure that they are actually feeling. So yeah, it's an interesting side of sport.
Big success, and then that initiates a whole bunch of, like, Victor Hovland, for example, I think a year or two ago. Was it the race to Dubai or something he won, and then binned his swing coach, and then tried to, it's kind of, I guess that's another rabbit hole almost some pros go down as well, isn't it, in the pursuit of absolute excellence. It's like, right, well, I've just done that, how do I And then Ludwig Goldberg as well got rid of his caddy after winning.
Yeah.
It's
there's a number of things like that have happened. I think Martin Keimer was another example. World number one, won US Open, hit everything with a slight fade, and I think he felt that to do well or to win the Masters, he needed to hit a draw. So he went away trying to work on being able to hit a draw. Didn't work out for him. Couldn't quite get back to where he was before he started, and then you kind of end up in a bit of no man's land. And I think that's happened to a few players. Again, it happens at a lower level. It happens with guys like myself who came through the Challenge Tour. You have a great season, you finish top 10 or top 15, whatever you need to earn your tour card. And then you're going into your first season on the European Tour or DP World Tour, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. You may not have the sponsorship you need to relax and enjoy it. So then you get offered some money from a different club manufacturer or ball manufacturer, and you start changing equipment and changing your ball and stuff like that. When you've just come off a very good season, and you go into arguably your most important season, your first season on the tour, and you've changed your equipment, and it makes no sense. But I can understand it in some ways, if you don't have the money, the funding to get started, because it is very, very expensive to play the tour, obviously.
Yeah.
So there's, a lower level, it happens like that. Equipment changes for not the right reasons. And then it just doesn't work out for players. So there's a few rabbit holes, and I guess the key overall is avoiding those.
Yeah, where you possibly can, but I guess you only learn by doing in some cases, right? You'd
True, yeah.
rather not do it make the mistake, if you will, in the first place, but you learn through these things. Without wanting or meaning to go too deep in it, Scott, I mean, I guess after that big win, there's been a period where, as far as I understand and have read, I guess you would have kept your card almost had an exemption for.
Yeah, I got 5-year exemption.
5-year exemption.
Yeah.
So then, what do you want to talk us through that point where kind of what almost happened? How did the trajectory of your career play out in the immediate aftermath of that, and then in the sort of subsequent years?
Well, it was obviously a huge change straight away. My schedule for the rest of the season was different. I had the 5-year exemption for the tour, but I also had an exemption into the Open. I'd qualified for the World Golf Championships that were being played at the time and the US PGA in America. So my schedule changed for the back end of that year. And it wasn't, I enjoyed that. It's where everyone wants to be. You want to be qualifying for those big tournaments and playing. And I played okay back end of the season in a couple of the bigger events. I was also on the fringes of Ryder Cup at that point. I was just kind of outside the qualification, but obviously that hadn't been a thought of mine at all at the start of the year or going into Wentworth, because I was literally just trying to, first step, get my card secure for the next season. So, there's a bit of Ryder Cup talk and whatever, and I kind of dismissed all of that, and I said, look, I'm just out to do the best I can do every week. I'm not going to put pressure on myself to make the team. I don't feel I need to prove anything to anyone or myself. I've got a win on tour, which is what I always felt I could do. Once I got to the tour, I felt like I could do well. I'd seen all my friends do it that I'd grown up playing amateur golf with. So the back end of the year was pretty exciting, traveling and playing those events. 2005, I played okay. My best results again were in some of the bigger events. If I'm honest, I felt it harder to get up for the smaller events, having played some of those world events and the majors, which is such big, spectacular events. I felt it a little bit harder on the day-to-day events, if you like, around the European Tour. So I had an okay season in 2005. Wasn't where I wanted to be. I wanted to be, challenging to win, and I wasn't. I hadn't tried to make swing changes or do anything like that, or equipment changes. I'd kept everything the same, my caddy, my coach, that kind of team. And then in 2006, I just got a run of events from about April time where I missed a whole load of cuts in a row by literally one or two shots, mostly one shot. Every week I seem to find myself with 9 holes to play and I'm on the cut or just outside it. And it's that negative pressure that I wasn't so good at. If I got myself into a good position in a tournament, which is, I refer to it as, having positive pressure because you're in that positive situation. I dealt with that pretty well. But when it was the other end and I was battling away with 9 holes to go to make the cut, I didn't necessarily perform as well. And I got on a little spiral there in 06, missed a load of cuts, had a terrible season. And I didn't feel that anything was particularly obvious in my game that was really negative, and that needed a lot of work on. I was still working with the same coach, and my practice was going pretty well, and my practice rounds were good. I just wasn't transferring it into the Thursday, Friday. And then when you do get a little run and you've missed cuts, by however many shots, but especially when you're just narrowly missing by one shot, perhaps. It does play on your mind a little bit, and the next week you go, there's a bit more pressure. So I found myself in that situation, and I had a few seasons where I really scored really poorly. And then before I knew it, I was coming to the end of my exemption, really. My 5-year exemption was coming to an end. And 2009, I changed my coach going into 2009 just purely because I needed to work on something different. I couldn't keep doing the same thing.
And expecting different results.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
So not that, I wasn't unhappy in my practice and my practice rounds when I was playing. I wasn't unhappy at all with my game most of the time. But I felt I needed to do something different. Otherwise I was going to go insane, And I had a much better season through 2009. And I think the last tournament in Hong Kong, I needed to finish 7th, I think it was, to keep my card, and I finished tied for 11th, something like that. I went back to the Q school and I got the very last card by chipping in on the last hole of 6
Magic.
rounds, which was incredible. But I then went on to that very bottom end of the Q school category, which hardly got me any starts on the tour. And they were very sporadic. So I'd gone from having 6 seasons where I was basically picking and choosing the events I wanted to play, because I was so highly ranked, to being so lowly ranked that I was only being able to play when I got in. And that was, sometimes very last minute, sometimes huge gaps, numbers of weeks between tournaments. And it was very frustrating, and subsequently I didn't play very well, and then that was me off the tour then, basically, and trying to fight my way back on once a year going to Q school, which was very difficult. So
we're around this time of year now where 20 odd guys or whatever have just come through Q school to either, in some cases, I was hearing today there was one guy, a Portuguese guy, who made it right through first stage, through second stage, and then to the last 6 rounds. I mean, that is unbelievable resilience.
I think anyone who plays golf makes you resilient in a lot of ways. The game beats most of us up most times we play, and your success rate is so small as a percentage. Your really good days against your bad days is pretty skewed in terms of percentages. But I think when you love the game, there's always something that makes you keep coming back. But I think to be in my position and like my friends and peers, you have to love the game so much and truly believe that you can achieve, to keep coming back and to pick yourself up, because most of the time it is a case of picking yourself up, dusting yourself off and going again the next week or the next day. For me, that's the beauty of the game. as hard as it is, it's about the challenge, going out there and knowing what you can do and what you can achieve, and going out there to try and do it. And most days you don't achieve it, but it's not losing heart in the challenge that's ahead of you to do that. Combined with the love of the game and wanting to test yourself. I guess that's what keeps us going. And in terms of professional sport, I understand. For some guys, I was in the position when I was younger that I didn't really know how much longer I could last financially. But I always felt within myself, if I could keep going, if I was able to keep going, that I could make it. I could make it to where I wanted to get to. And like I say, it took me a lot longer than a lot of my friends. And that's the advice I speak to a few younger players at the moment, sort of bit of mentoring and whatever. And I always say to them, if you, as long as you really honestly believe in your heart that you can make it and you're good enough, then you find a way to keep going. And keep working away, and don't give up on it. But yeah, the game overall, I think the game makes you resilient because it challenges you and it knocks you down, whenever it can. And you've got to love that fight. You've got to love that challenge, I think.
And it sounds like you do.
I do, yeah. No, I do.
And you love the game.
I do love the game, and I've had short spells away from the game when I came off the tour and. The situation was slightly different when I lost my card because I had such a bad year that I didn't even get starts on the Challenge Tour. I had to write off for invites, and they've changed that now, thankfully, for the guys. But and I was back playing, UK stuff, and for me, at that time, that wasn't tournament golf because I'd been at the heights of the game, playing in the majors and obviously winning a big tournament, and all of a sudden to go back to these other tournaments, for me, it just wasn't the same, and I found it quite hard to adjust. And I had a couple of spells where I thought, if this is what competitive golf is for me now, I'm not sure I want it. And I had a couple of opportunities to help a guy who was looking to set up a management company and a few other things around golf. So staying in the golf environment, and I had some short breaks away from the golf, from playing. And playing competitively. And within a few months, I soon realised that I needed that competition. Regardless of what the tournament was or what the golf course was like, I needed that. I needed to test myself. I needed to compete. I needed to be out there with a scorecard and a pencil in my hand. So in a way, I'm thankful for those couple of breaks that I had where I was maybe getting a little bit disillusioned with what I was able to play in, but that was through that was my own fault, if you like. That was caused by the failure I'd had from the tour, and playing poorly had put me in that position, which I hated. But taking a break from the game, I then realised, actually, do you know what, there's more to it than that, and it is about the competitive side. The competitive spirit is in me so strong that I need to do it. I need to play.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be one of my questions, but I think you've just beautifully answered it, which is like that time away acts as an opportunity for anyone in that situation, in your situation, to go, right, what's life like on the other side, kind of thing, and is that for me? And then you get some time to get perspective and go, no, I'm made for this. This is me. I need this, So maybe then let that bring us to Legends Tour, which is where you are now, and you've been on that tour for how long?
Just over a year now. Yeah.
And how's that experience been thus far?
It's been awesome to be back out playing competitively against my friends and peers from DP World back in the day. It's been great traveling again, like you say, playing nice golf courses in the sunshine, generally. I've always enjoyed traveling, so that's a big part of it for me. Things have changed now on the Legends Tour. The attitude is slightly different. We're all still highly competitive. We all want to win and we all want to beat each other. But at the same time, it is a little bit more relaxed. and I've got a great group of friends out there, and generally we hire a house or an apartment, and we stay together. We do it that way. It's very social. So I've really enjoyed that element of it. The tour itself has got a few challenges. It's very different to play in the main tour. We've got amateurs that play alongside us in some of our events, so the feel is very different when you're at a tournament sometimes. But ultimately, we're there. It's like I say, it's highly competitive, and in the last 2, 3, 4 years, there's been a really good number of really good players. I think the standard has gone up dramatically in the last few years. So you can go and play pretty well and only finish, in the top 25 out of 60 guys. Whereas I think, you go back a number of years, you wouldn't have so many good players, and the scoring is great. Week on week, you've got to be 12, 15, 18 under par for 3 rounds. So you've got to be on top of your game. You can't just rock up and be a bit rusty or get away with anything. You've got to be on your game to shoot those sort of scores and to do well out there. So it's I'm enjoying that competitive side of it again. Yeah.
I'll ask you a question now in the context of you playing the Legends Tour, something you were saying earlier on about, for example, in the aftermath of winning at Wentworth, it got you at least into the conversation for the Ryder Cup team, which up until that point was not a goal that you'd necessarily set yourself because, for one, it just wasn't a realistic outlook at that time. But you mentioning that makes me want to ask about goal setting because, I think in golf and with anything actually in life, if it's in business and you're an aspiring professional or whatever kind of thing, you can have a big goal, but you almost want to have micro goals on the way to get there, or process goals to get you to the outcome goal. So process goals in golf might be more like working on your game type goals, which you then trust will manifest into. So going into any given week or into a schedule of events, what's your outlook on that? On having goals? Do you set any?
I do. I'm not very specific and write them down as such, and sort of revisit them every week and read them and look at them and kind of have it as a mantra. But my philosophy these days is I literally go in every time I play. I go in each day, each week to try and get the most out of that day and the most out of that week, whatever it might be. Whether it's winning, finishing 10th, 20th, whatever. So that is what I generally stick to. I don't get tied up in looking too much at who's doing what and the order of merit and where I might need to finish and what I need, to do by the end of the year to secure privileges and all of that sort of thing. I literally go in and I'd say, right, I'm going to, my goal this week is to do my very best this week and see where I am. Ultimately, we do have some perks from the order of merit. If you finish in the top 10, it gets you into 2 of the US majors, the US Open and the US PGA. So that is a goal. Definitely that is a goal to finish top 10. Similarly, if you're just outside the top 10 but you're in the top 20, you get the US PGA as a privilege for finishing high up. So again, that's kind of a secondary goal. If you're not top 10, you definitely want to be top 20. Winning tournaments is always, up there as a goal. I'm a player who I've generally won at every level that I've played at and on every tour I've played on. So I want to win on the Legends Tour. I want to be one of the group of guys that has won on the Challenge Tour, the Main Tour, and the Senior Tour. So that is definitely a goal of mine. And the one thing, I guess, on a day-to-day basis, like you mentioned, is that since I've been out on the Legends Tour, it's in just over a year now, the courses and the setup is very different to how it was on DP World Tour. Courses are generally, they're not set up particularly tough most of the time. We play the course as it would be played on a day-to-day basis, whereas when the tour go to a venue, they grow the rough, they narrow the fairways, they do all that sort of stuff. So what I've found is there's a real emphasis on being world class from say 140 yards and in. So that is where my general game, from the tee to green, day to day is pretty steady. I'm never too erratic. So that part of my game, I generally keep some good swing feels going, keep my game in good shape that way. And then I've put, since I've been out on the Legends Tour, I've put more of an emphasis now on really trying to get very, very hot with the wedges, short game and putting, because that really makes the difference out on the Legends Tour. That's why the scoring is so low over 3 rounds. And most golfers will know it doesn't matter how well you play tee to green. If you don't hold the putts, you don't end up with a score. And that can be very frustrating. So, big element on the putting. I've worked with a guy, Ollie Leet, who's based up near Bristol. Been working with him for just over a year now. So we made a few technical changes, which I keep working on my drills with that. I've done a little bit of express aim point on the greens, which has helped me. I've always felt I've been pretty good at reading the greens. But again, I just felt it was something that was going to give me a little bit of a different focus, a different way of thinking about the putting. So I'm not just doing the same thing all the time. And so that's been beneficial. I've seen some results starting to come through from that. So I keep working away on that. And I guess those are the smaller goals which lead to the bigger goals that you talk about. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, Scott, if any of my viewers or listeners want to check you out, I think I can point them to, for example, the tour website. I have to admit, ever since you and I have connected, I've been, I always get my app and keep a close track on things. But any other places like LinkedIn, Instagram, I can pop in the show notes for people to follow you?
I'm on. I don't do too much on social media now, but I am on Twitter and Instagram at Scott G Drummond, I think it is. So. When the mood takes me, I post a few things. And the Legends Tour website, obviously you can keep up to date with what's happening out there on the senior tour.
Brilliant. Good stuff. Well, thanks so much for your time, Scott. Really appreciate it. Hope to come back to Staden Heights on a clearer day like it is now, and maybe get out there and have a knock with you sometime. So
absolutely. That'd
thanks
be great.
a lot, Scott.
Yeah. Cheers. Thanks, mate.